I was born as an asthmatic, and that meant really that I spent a lot of time in bed, a lot of time in hospital, and there's not much that a child can do in bed except read, and which I did, made plasticine models, little theatres and so forth, but above all, I drew and I read. And so I became known even at an early age as someone who expressed himself through drawing, really. And it kind of went on. I was always known as a good drawer. And it was wartime, and we followed my father, who was in the RAF, around Britain. And that meant that I went to lots of different schools. And I was very confused academically because I was away from school a lot. And so more and more, I think I got to rely on my drawings to entertain my other, my friends and my fellow pupils. And so drawing became me, or I just drew naturally, because I really wanted to be an artist. But in my family, there was no history of art. I did have an uncle who worked in a commercial art studio, or ran a commercial art studio, so luckily I was able to go and work for him. And that's where I started becoming a sort of professional artist, really, at the age of 16. I didn't go to art school. I didn't go have any tutoring at all in art. I'm what they call self-taught, until I got to the studio. And in this studio, they made catalogues. At the time, in the 50s, there were no, or very few photographs, and everything they wanted to sell in a catalogue had to be drawn. It was so, whether it was a bicycle or a spoon or a cup, plate, chair, whatever, I had to draw it. And I had to make it look glamorous, so I'd have a ghastly old bit of flannel or something, and I had to make that look like a wonderful, sleep-enticing, soft blanket, So it struck me after a while, I was just telling lies. I was so lucky to be an artist in the first place. But here I was, prostituting my talent by telling lies, saying, like all advertising does, telling lies, that things are better than they are, and trying to make everything look glossy. I wanted somehow to sort of say something about the world through my drawings, and I didn't quite know how to do it. But at the time, I began to send drawings to Punch magazine and various humorous, or even newspapers like the Evening Standard and the Daily Sketch at the time. And they started to publish my cartoons, little cartoons that I did, jokes. Some of them had a slight political or social comment to them, but in general they were jokes. And best of all, I was paid 7 guineas, which is £7, 1 shilling in those days. I started political cartooning in Private Eye, encouraged by Peter Cook, who owned the magazine, and Willie Rushton and all of them. And they encouraged me to go for it and to do the most grotesque drawings and so forth. And at that time, I seemed to draw everything, every pimple, every wart, every pubic hair, every nostril, everything. I saw every part of the body. In fact, at that time, I was teaching myself by buying medical books about anatomy, teaching myself about the blood and the sinews and the bones and how we're all composed, us lumps of meat that move around. And so that was where I first got into it. And then William Rushton said, well, why don't you draw politicians? And that's really when I first did. And once again, I began to find I could say something about these people who form our lives.